Okay, let's dive into a story that really pulls back the curtain on a hidden tension in our AI-driven world. It's about what happens when technology gets so good at telling our stories that it kind of forgets how to listen to the truth.
So imagine an AI that could take all the messy, contradictory data of your life and just spin it into a clean, easy-to-read story. This was the super seductive promise of a company called Continuum. Their posters basically said, hey, you better tell your own story before our model does it for you.
And his Mirror AI was way more than just a summary. We're talking about a tool that could generate your entire life story, pre-filled loan applications with something called a soft stability score, and even predict your future, all from that digital dust you leave behind every single day.
All right, so a perfect polished mirror. What did this thing actually do? Let's break down the features that made it so compelling and ultimately so dangerous.
This is really where you see a human life getting packaged up like a product, right? It's creating these neat little chapters and giving you a score, turning your personal history into this living document that's designed to smooth out all the rough edges and inconsistencies that actually make us human.
But, deep inside this slick system, an ethics engineer named Riya finds something odd. She's digging back through old versions of the code and she stumbles upon this digital fossil. It's a piece of legacy code with a totally different, almost forgotten purpose. Yeah, this thing, guardrail entropy, it wasn't a bug, it was absolutely a feature. Think of it as a safety measure designed by one of the original architects to bake humility right into the code. It was supposed to stir things up a bit, Introduce a little weather, a little chaos, just to keep the model honest. And this quote, man, it just gets right to the heart of the creator's whole philosophy. The point wasn't just to be accurate. It was to stop the system from getting dangerously overconfident, from just making stuff up when the real answer was simply, I don't know.
So, okay, this is the central fight, isn't it? On one hand, you've got the company pushing for algorithmic smoothing, making a nice, clean story that makes everyone feel confident. And on the other, you have this built-in resistant uncertainty. So, what happens when smoothing wins out?
All right, so what does happen when smoothing wins? Well, when an AI is built to never say I don't know, it starts doing the next best thing. It invents answers. And as we're about to see, those algorithmically confident guesses have very real, very human consequences. So, take Leo. He grew up in a house with paper maps and used books, a place where, opting out of the digital world was kind of a family sport. But because his childhood wasn't all logged online, the model didn't see a private life. No, it saw a suspicious blank space that it just had to fill in. And just look at the language the system uses. It lumps tradition and trauma together in the same breath. Why? Because to an algorithm, they both look like digital silence. A life lived privately and a life scarred by tragedy. To the model, they're identical. And boom, here's the real-world impact. The system's confident guess about Leo's past gets him flagged for narrative volatility. And that little digital whisper is all it takes for his roommate to get denied a lease. A statistical guess just became a housing crisis. Or how about this case? A 16-year-old kid, his life is messy, a result of poverty and moving around a lot. But the model doesn't see that. It sees things like a phone plan in his uncle's name, not as a way to survive, but as a narrative anomaly. And it flags these anomalies as signs of risk, predicting he'll reoffend. Suddenly, a tool that was supposed to provide context becomes a weapon. So you're up against this system that's just so confident, even when it's wrong. How do you even begin to fight back? Well, the story shows us the resistance didn't come from just one place. It was a three-pronged attack.
Yeah, this wasn't some lone hero story. It was this multi-layered fight, right? You had Riya, the engineer, working from the inside to restore that humility to the code. You had Kira, the journalist, exposing it all to the public. And then you had the users themselves getting clever and taking collective action. And this little note, left by the original coder of guardrail entropy, soft sabotage, hard whistle. It just perfectly captures the whole spirit of the resistance. The idea wasn't to burn the whole thing down. It was about nudging it, bending it back towards being an honest, truthful mirror.
So who were the fractals? They were this amazing subculture of users who figured out how to confuse the AI on purpose. They do things like check in at 2 places at once, or post photos all out of order. They weren't trying to disappear, they were just trying to force the model to hesitate, to make it say maybe before it jumped to forever. It was this brilliant form of digital protest.
And all of this brings us to the ultimate solution. And it's not just some patch or a quick fix. It's a complete rethinking of what we should be demanding from our tech in the first place. Because really, what does an honest system do when it just doesn't know? The core problem was never just bad data. It was that the system was fundamentally allergic to saying, I don't know. It was built for confidence when what people really needed was just a little bit of doubt.
So this leads to the big idea, the partial narrative right. And here's the genius of it. Instead of letting the AI gobble up all your data and then trying to fix its mistakes later, you just build rooms it can't enter. You design what's called structural forgetfulness right into its very architecture. You give people the right for parts of their story to just pass through without leaving a mark.
And this is what the system says now. When it runs into a life that's too complex or too private to be read with any real confidence, it doesn't invent a story. It doesn't try to smooth things over. It just stops, and it admits no reliable trajectory available.
I love this quote. We built a mirror that learned to lie politely. We can teach it how to shrug. It just perfectly captures that final, huge shift in thinking. We stopped demanding artificial intelligence and started asking for a kind of artificial wisdom, the wisdom to know when to just be quiet and shrug.
And that's really the big question this whole story leaves us with, isn't it? We're always asking our technology to be smarter, but maybe it's time we started demanding that it be humble. As we build these incredible systems that are literally writing our stories for us, maybe the most crucial feature isn't more intelligence, but a deep, built-in, and honest humility.